when you break down the marriage culture. And of course, same-sex marriage is not what began the process of breaking down the marriage culture. Things like no-fault divorce, cohabitation, the ideology of the sexual revolution started that. But when you break down the marriage culture, you begin to lose something that our libertarian friends who love freedom so much say they value, which is limited government.
Mm-hmm.
I myself am for limited government. I'm not a libertarian, but I believe in limited government because I believe in the importance of protecting the mediating structures of society, the families, the churches, the civic associations, and so forth, as well as individual dignity and individual rights. But I say to my libertarian friends, you got to understand, when the marriage culture breaks down, we fail to support it. And all the social pathologies that follow in the train of that come to pass. What happens? We don't get limited government. We get the growth of government. First, to provide the health, education, and welfare services that are no longer being provided by the family when marriages fail to form or too many marriages break down, when you get family fragmentation, out-of-wedlock births, and so forth. And then further growth of government because of the need for policing, correctional facilities, and so forth, because of the increase in the rate of crime as a result of the family failing to perform its essential social functions. So if you want limited government, and you should be in the forefront of defending the institution of marriage, beginning with the basic understanding of marriage as a conjugal union, which we must defend if we are to have any hope of rolling back all the other harm that's been done to the marriage, harms that have been done to the marriage culture over the years that had nothing to do with same-sex anything. That is, those harms having to do with cohabitation and the divorce culture, especially no-fault divorce and out-of-wedlock births and so forth.
I'm reminded of a passage in The Abolition of Man where C.S. Lewis says, when all that says it is good has been debunked, what says I want remains. And this is 1948. He's, again, seeing this trajectory of the denial of any kind of intrinsic good, and then desires, untrammeled desires, all that's left. And so the idea that freedom could involve self-denial is, again, I don't know of any institutions in public culture, in our public life, that make it plausible to people that freedom can involve self-denial. Maybe I don't know. Maybe if one's involved in sports, maybe one experiences that to some extent. But
well, it's amazing that there were people like C.S. Lewis, G.K. Chesterton, the philosopher Elizabeth Anscombe. There were some prophetic people really who saw it coming, who saw the seeds many, many decades ago of this collapse of understanding of the human good and therefore of freedom, this trend toward identifying my flourishing or my well-being with the satisfaction of my desires, and then moving to the idea that freedom is doing what I want, when I want, with whom I want, no matter what. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it's added, so long as it doesn't cause harm to others. Of course, harm to others meaning concrete, palpable, immediate harm to others, and neglecting the long-term social harms that some of these things do. But yeah, I mean, it's the position that we find ourselves in. We look back on figures like Lewis with a certain reverence because of their foresight. And I think that the solutions to our problems are also to be recovered in examining the thought of people like Lewis and Chesterton and Anscombe and of others. These prophets were not only seers, people who saw the future, but they also had a profound sense of the intelligibility of the goods that we need to defend. So I would like as many of our young people in particular as possible to go back and look at The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis.
Yeah,
look at Anscombe's work. Look at Chesterton's work.
That's a very important point, that these goods are not mysteriously opaque and incapable of being rationally discussed.
Oh, yes. These are not mystical. We're not talking about... I mean, when someone has the insight, just the basic fundamental insight that, you know what, reading Shakespeare just for its own sake, just for its intrinsic enrichments, and not because I'll be able to get a job as a professor of Shakespeare studies or because I'll be able to impress people at a cocktail party, but just because it's ennobling and enriching to engage the thought of this great thinker and writer. When one has that insight, one understands something very basic and important about our nature as human beings, about our well-being, about our flourishing. The same when you have the insight that virtue really is its own reward. The same when you have the insight that the appreciation of beautiful form or the development of skills in chess or ballet or football is something that's desirable not simply as a means to extrinsic ends, but something for its own sake. That tells us something profound about our nature as human beings, and there's nothing mystical or spooky about that stuff at all. Aristotle, who gave the first really systematic account of the human good, what he called eudaimonia, human flourishing, human well-being, sometimes translated as happiness. Aristotle was a very practical, down-to-earth, feet-on-the-ground guy. His theory was very different from his own teacher, Plato, who saw the reality of the world, including human goods, as simply pale reflections of transcendent forms. No, Aristotle sees the human good as very concrete, very palpable, and I think he's absolutely right about that. And it's entirely consistent with the biblical understanding, the Jewish and Christian understanding of the human good.
Robert George, visiting professor at Harvard Law School and McCormick Professor of Jurisprudence at Princeton University. He's the author of numerous books, including The Meaning of Marriage, The Clash of Orthodoxies, Law, Religion, and Morality in Crisis, and with Sharif Girgis and Ryan Anderson, What is Marriage? Man and Woman